Cullen goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
All righty. We should start a clock, like after when the Iranian hostages, the Americans were taken hostage in Iran during the Carter administration. And that was the beginning of Nightline, Ted Koppel's show. They were doing a late night show on it, and they had that, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking we should do the same kind of thing, the countdown to the election. Or maybe do it in reverse. Gee whiz. Anyway, for those of you who are so sick of this election you can't stand it, I don't know what to tell you. There's no escaping it, and it just gets scarier by the minute. Latest polls. By the way, let me just say something that I'm really feeling. Fuck the polls. I mean, I'm so sick of it. What? It used to be, didn't it? Or am I misremembering? It used to be that newspapers, excuse me, and news organizations in broadcast, excuse me, would, dang it, would tell you what was happening, right? Now what they seem to do is they see themselves as soothsayers, right? They're reporting all the time on things they don't know, but yeah, their data says this is what'll happen, that is what'll be. Hey, I don't think that's what your job is, because those things screw people's heads up. Tell us what is. The future will happen. And they've been proven wrong a great deal. So they just report on this friggin' horse race crap and not on policy. Not on substance, like I'm saying something that hasn't been said before. It just drives you mad. Right now, I can tell you what's on CNN right now. I can tell you what's on MSNBC right now. I can tell you what's on Fox right now. I know, and the same thing will be on 15 minutes from now and 20 minutes from now. Normally, it would be the election. But, of course, a plane went down. So 24/7, that's all. And all they're doing is speculating. How's that news? That's what you do around the water cooler. Leave that to us, okay? You tell us, I'm telling the media, you tell us what is known. We'll engage in idle speculation on our free time. We were reminded a bit of what television news was capable of with the passing of Morley Safer, who, those of you who are young won't know, when he was a younger man, was an extraordinary war correspondent, the war being the Vietnam War. And he risked death to tell the American people what was happening. In fact, he refused to do what lazy reporters did, which was go dutifully every day to the press briefings from the military commanders in Saigon at 5 o'clock, where they would tell the media what they wanted the media to report. Not necessarily what was true, but it was their spin. And that's what a lot of reporters just did. They took the notes, and that's what we read. Morley Safer, along with a few other guys that I can think of, David Halberstam of the New York Times, they said, screw that. They called it the 5 o'clock follies. And they embedded themselves. They just went off by themselves into the thick of it, following the troops. And when you hear that it was the news coverage of Vietnam that turned the American people around about this war, it is because of the reporting of Morley Safer more than anybody else. Because he brought the American people into that Vietnamese jungle, into the horror of what was happening. And so when Americans would turn on Walter Cronkite and the CBS Evening News, which they did religiously for 30 minutes of information, not speculation, information about what was happening. And they were generally given some pretty good information. The fact that Safer was not regurgitating what the Pentagon wanted reported, but instead was going out and seeing the war as it really unfolded with his extraordinarily courageous Vietnamese camera guy. And there was one report that really got people's attention, including the White House. LBJ went berserk because he knew that that report was going to turn the people against the war. It was August 1965, and Safer is out there. Believe me, it would have been safer for Safer to be back in Saigon. Safer was out there with his Vietnamese photographer, and they were in a little hamlet about 10 miles west of Da Nang, okay? And the American military intelligence, an oxymoron here for sure, American intelligence, had heard that this little hamlet was a hotbed for the Viet Cong, and that the Viet Cong were there. The truth of the matter is that the Viet Cong had decamped quite some time ago. So all that was in that little hamlet were the poor people that lived there, who probably hadn't wanted the Viet Cong there, and they sure as hell didn't want the Americans there. Safer and his photographer are there as the Americans start assaulting this hamlet. They encountered no resistance, but they kept on firing rockets, machine guns, burning their thatched huts, flamethrowers going, grenades. Old men were pouring out of burning huts, women screaming for them to stop. They burned down the rice stores. They burned down everything. And Safer filmed the whole thing. And here is what he said. This aired on CBS Evening News. Here is what that young reporter said. This is what the war in Vietnam is all about. The Viet Cong were long gone. The action here wounded 3 women, killed 1 baby, wounded 1 Marine, and netted 4 old men as prisoners. Today's operation is the frustration of Vietnam in miniature. To a Vietnamese peasant whose home means a lifetime of back-breaking labor, it will take more than presidential promises to convince him that we are on his side. Wow. So that's broadcast on the CBS Evening News. And the images were more powerful than anything Safer had said. Lyndon Johnson is on the phone at midnight with the president of CBS, Frank Stanton. One can only imagine the expletives flying. He also ordered an investigation of Morley Safer because he said he must be a communist. He said, channeling, I don't know, J. Edgar Hoover. So, you remember. And then Safer went on to do little fluff stories, fun stories for 60 Minutes. He didn't do a lot of heavy-duty stuff after that, but he'd earned his stripes. And I suppose that's where you start getting this sense that the media, the mainstream media, were liberals, right? Because that report sounds, I don't know. I don't know if a similar report would air today, or we wouldn't even react to it, because now that video took 48 hours, so it wasn't an immediacy of reporting. But for the American public at the time, it sure seemed to be. I mean, today you can be live in a firefight. So we're, I guess, now more inured. Oh, well. I didn't get to 2 of your emails yesterday while I was blathering on about Donald Trump. So I was sorry. And after the show, when I read them, I thought, dang, that would have been really good. But I didn't get you in. So I'm going to do those now. And the first from Henri, who says, today on Twitter, Trump called Bill Clinton a rapist. And he called Hillary a rape enabler. He claims to have a number of women who will come forward to attest to this. Well, get yourselves ready for a real high-minded presidential election. Henri says, this infuriates me. How do you bully a bully? It's the question I keep asking. Hillary said yesterday about these things that she would refuse to respond to any of it. She was not going to take his bait by getting involved. But and she says, if he goes after my family, my husband, I am not. I am going to continue. And I guess that's the best way for her to do it. Because everybody who has taken him on has failed because, well, he plays the bully boy game better than just about anybody, right? So, you know, the chutzpah of a admitted serial adulterer going after the first woman running for the presidency of the United States because her husband was also an adulterer. Wow. And somehow that's her fault. And the thing is, because of our innate, inherent, even though we don't acknowledge it, sexism, that has power. Women are, with all those cards they have, held to a higher standard, that somehow they're responsible for things that their men do, their children do, and if their men go wrong or their children go wrong, it's her fault. Remember when they used to say homosexuality? When I was young, this was the idea that a boy would become a homosexual. It was quite clear that it was his mother's fault. I mean, that was the medical, best idea at the time. He obviously had an overbearing mother. Wow. Anyway, Henri Wright, is there no one who can put this man in his place? Well, the only people who can are the American people, the voters. That's all we got between us and President Trump right now. And, you know, it's not like any of us know all those voters, so it's hard to calculate, but those goddamn polls, that we're seeing are saying, and that's what that Trump is already narrowing the gap nationally in general election registered voters. She's only 6 points ahead of him. Another poll, I believe coming out of Fox, so somewhat suspect, shows him ahead. Henri says, I fault the media for not vetting Trump's words on an hourly basis. Exactly right. He lies about every 2 sentences. And if you had a functional and media of even a modicum of integrity and professionalism, they would be on that. They're afraid to, because they're afraid it'll play to his benefit. Because why? Oh, look, the media boo the, cue the boos. Boo! The media are trying to get Hillary in the White House. The media are ganging up on me. The system is rigged. Now, what's interesting is I could argue that, yes, the system is rigged. I just would argue it in a different way than he does. I could argue that the media are not doing their job, certainly. I could, when it comes to media, I go boo a lot too. But he uses it. It accrues to his benefit. 'Tis amazing. All right, and Henri finishes with, I am doubling my doses of Xanax. Yeah, well, pace yourself, or you'll be a DOA before November. Let's just pace ourselves here. Chuck writes, Hillary is running a status quo campaign, and I think that's a mistake. I hope her strategists realize that this election is far from status quo. Well, if they don't, they're blithering idiots. This election is way outside the box, and Hillary and her team need to think that way, outside the box. I don't know if they're capable of that. Trump is fighting dirty, fighting filthy, and she'll have to do the same. I don't know. See, she's choosing not to. She may want to take the high road, but I don't think you can take the high road with Trump. But here's the thing, Chuck. If you take the low road with him, you get destroyed. It destroyed Rubio. Remember when Rubio tried to take him on like that? When Cruz tried to take him on like that? It doesn't work. And a woman getting down and dirty would be more appalling than when little Mario did it. Mario. You know, the power of repetition, and it's something that the Nazi propagandists knew. The big lie. If you're going to lie, lie audaciously. I mean, Hitler's propaganda, the guy knew that. If you're going to lie, lie big. Because people will not believe that you would say such a thing if it weren't true. And then repeat and repeat and repeat until it becomes just a given. Yes, of course. John Kerry was a coward in Vietnam. Never mind those medals he got. Never mind. You can do a big lie, and the people, if it's repeated enough, will buy it. Donald Trump no longer says Hillary, just Hillary. There's always the adjective preceding it. And that adjective, as you know, is crooked. So he'll tweet every few seconds something about, well, crooked Hillary just... And the repetition, crooked Hillary, crooked Hillary, crooked Hillary, will have an impact on her, negative, of course, equal to, if not worse, than the repetition of low energy Jeb. Low energy Jeb. Every time you saw him, you sort of he looked lower and lower energy. Little Mario, little Mario, little Mario, little. Lion Ted. God almighty. And it works. That's what's so mind-boggling. So anyway, you could vote for the Libertarian ticket. You know, they're on the ballot in 32 states, and the ticket is comprised of two governors, two formerly Republican governors now running on the Libertarian ticket. Both of them pretty good governors, actually. New Mexico's former governor, Gary Johnson, is running for president. Lots of luck there, Gary. And his running mate is one of those old, relatively moderate Republicans who was the governor of Massachusetts for 2 terms. A respected man. His name, William Weld. It might ring a bell. William Weld signed on, and because he desperately wants Republicans to have somebody to vote for other than Trump and other than Hillary. So these libertarians could peel off votes from, well, I guess, Republicans and maybe from Hillary as well. But listen to what he said. This is a Republican, William Weld, former governor, said, quote, I can hear the glass crunching on Kristallnacht in the ghettos of Warsaw and Vienna. You know what he's talking about? Trump. And he was talking about Trump's plan to deport 11 million immigrants in this country. And the only thing he could think of that he knew of that had ever happened that seemed to be akin to such an incredible thing, to round up 11 million people, he thought of the Nazis. And he thought of that horror that night when they rampaged through Jewish neighborhoods. Kristallnacht. And when questioned about it, the former Republican governor said, "My Kristallnacht analogy does evoke the Nazi period in Germany, and that's what I'm worried about. A slippery slope." Now, then he went on to say, I'm not calling Trump a Nazi or a fascist, but he says, I'm just saying we gotta watch it. And when we get exclusionary about people on account of their status as a member of a certain group, we've gotta watch. Yeah. Well, some of us are ahead of you there, Governor. We're watching. Lori writes, Lynn, Trump equating adultery to rape is diminishing the horrors of rape. It's appalling. Well, there have been a few women who've accused Bill Clinton of rape. So maybe he's referring to those accusations. I cannot believe we're going to have to relive all that again. So it's and Trump's own problems with women. You know, the New York Times article that, as I said, didn't sound like much of anything to any woman of a certain age. And in fact, the mail that the Times has gotten on this is mind-blowing. But some woman in Ottawa wrote what I would have written. She said, I needed a shower after reading this, but there's nothing here to surprise any woman who was in the workplace in the 70s and 80s. Right. I mean, that's the way it was. And I suspect that's the way it still is in some places, obviously in Trump Tower. But then another woman from Wisconsin said these beauty queens crying that he lined them up and walked down and looked them up and down and made some of them cry because they weren't as hot as somebody else. This woman, that fell on deaf ears. She says it's hard to feel sorry for someone who voluntarily chose to enter a beauty pageant, then feels slighted because someone was critical of her appearance. Some truth there. New York Times front page today. There are statistics here, again, more friggin' numbers, that just blow your mind, though, and you know them already. It's been reported how both Clinton and Trump are disliked by the majority of Americans. So no matter who wins, we're going to have a president who starts out with no honeymoon, starts out with a majority of Americans distrusting them, fearing them, hating them. Question to put to registered voters of both parties. Does the candidate share your values? Guess what people said about Trump. If asked that question, you'd probably say no. I'd say no too. So do 66% of all American registered voters. No. 66% say he does not share my values. Well, hell, that would seem to suggest that he ain't going to win. But then you see, if the question is asked about Hillary Clinton, does she share your values? That negative is still huge. It's 60%. Trump, 66. No. Hillary, 60. So both candidates, 2/3 essentially of the public, find their values off-putting, what they perceive as their values. Then you ask, is the candidate honest? Well, excuse me, how could crooked Hillary be honest? And, in fact, when people are asked about is Hillary Clinton honest, 64% say no. 2/3. Guess how many say that about Trump? 64%. Does the candidate have the right kind of temperament to be president? Well, here you gotta figure Hillary's gonna come out ahead. And in fact, she does, because 70% of voters asked said no about Trump. And 49% said no, that she does not have the temperament about her. They're hated. They are not liked, and they are not trusted. And one of them will be our next president. The difference is one is a proto-fascist. So the favorability ratings, Trump's favorables he just gets 26%. Hillary gets 31%. And Bernie gets 41%. So he's viewed more favorably by more Americans, but I would argue that's because no one feels particularly threatened by him. Oh, boy. 84% of Republicans say their party is divided. 84 see their party is in real trouble, but half of Democrats feel the Democratic Party is divided. Never quite seen this level of the center will not hold. It ain't. It ain't holding. And that beast is still slouching toward Bethlehem. Dorothea writes, the media has been using polls for years now to keep us watching. As Uncle Dougie used to say, it's all about selling soap. Yeah. From now until November, polls will change and we'll be led by the nose if we allow it, she says. There are about 18 battleground states. The polls for those states will change back and forth, a number of times until November. I am not worried, she says. Hillary can lose all of those battleground states and still win the election. That's what the media is not telling us. She can lose all the battleground states and still win the election? I'd have to see those numbers. Ignore the national popular vote polls. It counts for nothing. Only electoral votes count. P.S. Gosh, what would Doug say about this election if he were here? God, I miss him. Yeah. Well, Doug would have said a pox on both their houses, although it is conceivable to me that Doug would be a Trump supporter. It is conceivable to me, knowing Doug and knowing his sort of contrariness, also knowing his dislike of Hillary Clinton. So I'm not so sure. He might flirt with Bernie, but Doug is at heart a libertarian. I don't know. He'd be having a ball, I'll tell you that. As opposed to me, who is not, who's just disgusted and distressed. Hey, I was kidding my sister Susan about her former state of Missouri doing nothing. Their legislature does nothing but pass laws that will then be found unconstitutional. That's all they do. They get paid for that. What a job. They have no understanding of the Constitution of the United States of America, and they feel very patriotic, too. So Missouri is not alone in this regard. Oklahoma also. All that legislature does, and these are always Republican legislatures, all they do is pass laws that end up immediately in a courthouse and very quickly thereafter thrown out the window by judges appointed by Republicans, Democrats, and antelopes. It doesn't matter. You don't even have to have a legal degree to know that the law is on its face unconstitutional. And these things pass by, let's see, the one I'm going to talk about, the Oklahoma law, passed by 33-12. And it's going to the governor's desk. Whether or not she signs it is not known, but she's a Republican. Probably will. The law effectively says that any doctor who performs an abortion in Oklahoma will be arrested and charged with a felony, will have his or her medical license taken away. They'll be hung by, hung, drawn, and quartered. Well, now, this is so clearly unconstitutional since abortion is, we have it from the Supreme Court, is a legal procedure. So how a doctor performing a legal procedure ends up committing a felony is a little hard to figure. Dysfunctional. I think that's the word, dysfunctional, for so much government. And it's because it's usually at the hands, I have to tell you, of Republicans who don't believe in government, so they love throwing wrenches in the works, proving their point that government can't work. Government doesn't get anything done. Government doesn't work. And if you don't believe that, watch us. We will prove it to you in no uncertain terms. Okay. Well, if I can get local for a while, I gotta tell you, speaking of drawing and quartering somebody, I'd like to get at this SOB. Henry, how do you pronounce that name? Sciorratino, the guy who headed the ICA, the Intergovernmental, whatever it was, cooperation. Oh, the Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority. Oh, words. People who come up with these names are people who don't respect words. I've been thinking a lot about words because I have to speak at a congregation this Sunday about words. And so I have been thinking a lot about their power to lead us, because they're tools, right, of communication. And they can lead us toward truth, or they can just as readily, maybe more easily, deceive us. So that's how you get Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority for something that was put in place by Republicans in Harrisburg to stymie the Democratic administration in Pittsburgh, and to keep one man, that's the guy they appointed, one man's hands on money that belonged to the city, and he could decide whether they got it or not. This guy, as you know, is under investigation now. He's out of the job. And every time I see his repulsive, smiling face in the paper, I want to punch him. I want to punch this SOB's lights out. This is the face of a man of zero integrity, of a man who would take on a job in which he is supposed to guard the taxpayers' dollars. And instead, he just took them. Did you see the latest on this SOB? During the course of his tenure, he got $280,000 in compensation for vacation days he said he didn't take. Now understand this. These are vacation days he said he didn't take. Nobody was keeping track of when he was in the office or not. And by all accounts, he was not in the office very often. In fact, sometimes the office, as we have heard, didn't really even exist. It seemed to be in the basement of some building somewhere downtown and had a cot and a hot plate in it. Yeah. Remember those stories? Well, okay. So this jerk who is overseen, we use the word in its meaningless definition, meaning not, who was overseen by a board of directors who themselves, I think, should be very, very nervous. They were his only bosses. They never questioned him putting in for saying, I never took a vacation day, I have a blah, blah, blah. He ripped us off for right there, and this is just the vacation and stuff. He ripped us off for $250,000. This is a guy who knows how to take vacations, I can assure you, because he sure as hell was never doing the job. If a board has any responsibility, it's to watch the money. I sit on some boards. I understand that. And my understanding is, as a member of a board, you have fiduciary responsibility for that organization. So, why are you laughing? You're laughing because you're imagining me having fiduciary responsibility? It is a joke. No, that's not it.
No, it's the word, because I'm being really immature.
Oh, Celine says, I'm being really immature. She's being really immature. I am not. That's quite all right. I love to be immature myself on occasion. But how are these board members, none of whom, by the way, will answer any report, they've all gone underground. They're all living in some basement downtown with a cot and a hot plate. Because they won't answer any questions. Because they obviously did absolutely nothing to oversee this thief, this son of a bitch. If this guy doesn't get perp-walked in chains before cameras at some point, I will be very disappointed. Just give him to me. What a slime. There is so much money that nobody knows where it is, where it went. And this is the guy who was put in place by the geniuses in the Republican leadership in Harrisburg to oversee those spendthrift Democrats who control the city of Pittsburgh. They put in this fine, upstanding citizen to ride herd on Pittsburgh government. And all the time, all he was doing was lining his own pockets. This was the financial overseer. And to make matters worse, the board that was installed to oversee him obviously did not in any way perform. They rarely met. That's clear. Hello.
Hey, Lynn, Jonathan Greensburg here. Good Friday morning to you.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a couple of things I want to say. You know as well as, well, we've discussed before. I mean, there's a lot that I would object to about Hillary Clinton as a candidate. I mean, some of the Clinton associations are just rancid, and, you know, I've just always found them to be soft on core liberal issues and willing to, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
Frankly,
I agree. And
but here's
there's
here's
a
my
smarminess there.
Here's my first point. All that applies to Bill. All that applies to Bill more so than Hillary, whom I think is more liberal than Bill, and has always been more committed to at least women and children's issues.
Yeah.
And yet, Bill doesn't get nearly as high an unfavorable rating.
No. Isn't that something?
So let's be honest with ourselves about two things. One, a lot of it is because she's a woman.
You bet.
It is.
Yes.
And two, some of it is coming from the Sanders supporters, and this is where I'm going to make my second point. A lot of them are acting like a bunch of miserable, whiny punks. And I don't like saying that about people. I understand there's young people, mostly, and they're passionate, but a lot of them are acting like miserable, whiny punks. Now, in the PA election, the PA primary, we had sort of the luxury of being able to vote for a candidate and then vote for electors as well,
right.
Delegates.
Yes.
And I split my delegates vote among the Sanders and the Clinton delegates. Given the way that Sanders is now acting and the way some of her supporters are acting, I'm beginning to regret that.
Yeah.
I really am. Like I said, I absolutely agree. He can stay in through the end, let all the states vote. He's lying to people when he says he still has a path to the nomination, because he doesn't.
No, he does not. Well, his path is only if she somehow stumbles to the point where or is indicted, as they say, whatever.
That's like saying your team is 5 touchdowns. Your team is 5 touchdowns behind. It's the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. Well, if their quarterback and running back both have heart attacks on the field, we can still come back and win.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. It's like saying I'm going to win the Powerball lottery. It's possible. Meaning it's not like forbidden by the laws of physics.
Well, so what he's doing is, so he's lying when he says there's a path there.
He's lying.
Yeah, he's lying.
And there's a word for taking donations and raising money based off telling people something that ain't true. That's called fraud. That's called being a con man.
It's called being a politician.
And I also think the campaign, I think when he started, he had some noble motivations. And he figured it would be, put forth his issues, make a statement. He knew he wasn't going to win. When all the big rallies kept happening and the donations were rolling in, and he made it much more of a race, with winning many states, let's give him that, I think his ego took over.
Who do you think's more surprised, Trump or Sanders? Because both started never for a minute thinking that they would prevail. Which man do you think is more shocked?
Good question. Trump, I think, has the more massive ego.
Right.
So I think...
Sanders.
Yeah, I think Sanders is more shocked.
Yeah.
Well, but here's the thing. Sanders is angry now because he knows he's not going to prevail. He knew after New York.
And to get so close. Yeah, it would be... He's close.
He's not close, Lynn. He's not close.
He's close in that he's going to...
He's much further behind than
And
Hillary
she
Clinton
was
ever
with
was
Obama.
to Barack Obama.
Okay.
She was close in popular votes, even excluding Michigan and Florida, which were disqualified. She was much closer in the delegate count.
Okay.
After he lost sizably in New York, he was done. He wasn't close anymore. I mean, he was back up to nearly a 300-point deficit.
Okay, well, we recognize, and as you started with, she ain't the strongest candidate, obviously. The American people feel they know her. They have decided they don't like her. They have decided she's untrustworthy. And a whole bunch of people are, despite that, going to vote for her. But she's so weak as a candidate that for her to go into a Democratic convention and have to face more trouble at the convention.
What's the trouble? I mean, that's what's making me angry. Like, let's talk about a contested convention.
No, he's going to contest every step of the convention. So, the platform.
What's he going to do? He's going to call for a floor vote, and then what? Like, sit in a chair with his arms crossed and stew while they all vote like Hillary Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Hillary Clinton.
No, maybe.
I mean, what's he going to do?
I don't know. Maybe they'll start throwing chairs.
Yeah. Or calling female delegates, bitches and the C word and
I don't know, but I'm starting to think that you could see every bit as much of a conflagration in Philadelphia at the Democratic Convention as we were thinking we would see in Cleveland at the Republican Convention, which now might be a relatively sedate affair.
Well, but it's different. The only thing the Sanders people could do is get angry and disruptive. They can't change the result.
Outcome.
There's no question who's going to be the candidate.
No, they can weaken the candidate of the Democratic Party. But here's what I pointed out yesterday. He's not a Democrat. He doesn't give a shit about the Democratic Party. And a ton of his supporters are also not Democrats. They don't care.
And again, I mean, look, I think it's great, to bring independent to get independents who may agree with you on the majority of the issues in. But like I said, I think it's changed to the point where for any Bernie supporter to want to vote for Trump, I can see them sitting out. I understand if you're just so discouraged, if you think the whole system is so corrupt and
well, you might, no, but
there are times I feel that way.
But you might hate Hillary so much for getting in Bernie's way that you do vote for Trump.
But it's
I don't care. You said they
were. Off your nose to spite your face. It's ridiculous. It's like saying, well, okay, this candidate has a lot of flaws, but she'd vote for what I want half the time. Here's the guy. He won't vote for what I want 1% of the time.
But irrationality is loose in the land.
I'm hoping H.L. Mencken wasn't right about the American people. I mean,
well, what do you think?
I just see this guy. I mean, I feel like we're in I don't know. This is surreal.
Yes.
Donald Trump as the candidate.
I know.
This is surreal.
I know. But it is real. It's surreal, but it's real. John, I don't know what to tell you, except, a lot of people are going to be drinking heavily, overdosing on Xanax, and beating their wives and children. I don't know. I mean, this is just friggin' incredible. But it's real. And the possibility that Donald friggin' Trump could be the president of these United States, of these disunited, fractious states, is palpable. It is, and possible. Oy. Well, thanks for the call. God help us.
Have a miserable day.
Have a wonderful weekend. Bye. Bye. What did I saw something that Colbert said something like I forget. It was something about how in the Republican convention in Cleveland would beget the start of Armageddon. The end, the beginning of the Trump candidacy and the end of the Republic, or something like that. Hello. Hi.
Hi.
You need to turn down your whatever. That
here, I'm going to walk away from it.
Okay.
You know what? That guy John that just called, I've listened before. I hesitate to call. I'm not good on these on a phone, right, knowing I'm on the radio, but he makes my blood boil. You know what? Sanders supporters find he's so dismissive of us. Oh, they're a bunch of young kids. Sorry, I'm not a young kid. I am a lifelong Democrat. I know the system is rigged. This is the point. For these apologists to say, oh, it's a bunch of young kids dismissive throwing chairs. No. We all know the system is broken, completely broken. That is what entices people to Trump. He's saying the same thing. Sanders is saying, you know, for us to acknowledge, you were just talking about the guy that was, you know, the corrupt guy in Pittsburgh. Yeah. We all know it is absolutely 100% completely broken. For people to say that, oh, they're going to vote for Trump just to spite Hillary Clinton, no, maybe some people, it's not going to be me, but I could see some people saying, well, you know, maybe we have to, like, you know, hit the gutter to, like, come clean again, you know?
Well, no, I think I've heard that from some people, like, you gotta, better than let Trump be the president and the whole thing's going to fall apart and then we can start over. That's a really dangerous
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. But we're like in a real pickle. What do you do?
Well, what are you going to do? Because odds are Bernie's not going to be on the ballot. What are you going to do?
Well, okay, number one, I will vote, and I'm a Democrat, and I will not vote for Trump. Absolutely not.
Well, but you can't say, so that leaves you with Hillary? You said you're a Democrat. You haven't said that. You might not vote for Hillary even then.
Personally, I will.
You will.
I know other people that are talking, and that worries me because I know other people that say they'll just sit out.
Yeah.
I will try to convince them not to. That will have to be my job.
Yeah, it's
but
all
I
our
want
jobs.
that John to know that, you know, to just like accept this and say it's a bunch of young people who are like, you know, feeling rebellious. No, it's a lot of people who are feeling rebellious and feeling like, you know, we've just had it. I understand it. Plus, the whole thing with this, you know, the Barack bots. I mean, Hillary has so many shills out there. They've been for months. It's like, give up. Don't even wait for give up Bernie. Don't even let the process work through. Meanwhile, it's Hillary herself who, when people were telling her in 2008, Barack Obama has the nomination.
Right.
She said, oh, well, of course I'm not going to come out of the game. Anything could happen. Look, Robert Kennedy was shot in June. She herself said that, which was shocking at the time. So there's this idea that anything could happen, right?
So you mean she said that she was suggesting that Barack Obama could get assassinated?
Well, that anything could. Well, he could have dropped dead with a heart attack too, you know, or he could have been indicted for something. Meaning anything can happen. The game's
so
not
you stay
over.
In the game. Well, if
now,
anything,
look up that quote. She said it herself.
I don't want, you know, if the fact is if for some reason Clinton, you know, is unavailable,
right.
Bernie will get the nod because he's obviously the only one who's been out there fighting for it.
Exactly. So let the game play out.
Fine.
It's not over.
But it'd be nice if he would not, and disparaging her is only harming the person who very likely, will be taking on Trump. So, I mean, this is an opportunity for him to continue to lay out his policies, what he wants to do, but making it personal, I don't see how that's helpful.
I don't think he's not making it, and that's what I don't understand because I don't see it.
Okay.
The media is telling us he's making it personal. This is no different than Hillary was with Barack Obama. She indicated even worse things. She was more disparaging to Barack Obama when he was her opponent. And so I don't see this. I'm almost saying, why not play out the game? This is the problem. Is the Democratic Party just, you know, trying to push him out before the game is over? If anything, I want to see him stay in the game because it sends a message to her that, you know what, there are a lot of us out there.
That's true. I mean, if she doesn't know that, and if she doesn't, then the Democratic Party is in big trouble. I mean, the Democrats have been put on alert, as have certainly the Republicans have been taken over. The Democrats, though, are looking like that party is on
we
very
have the same
thin
thing
ice,
going on
too.
here
Right.
with this Katie McGinty, the whole Sestak Katie McGinty.
I agree with that. We picked the establishment forced on us a weak candidate when Sestak clearly was the better of the two. Of course, Fetterman didn't help.
Right, and I am thinking that we're going to have Toomey again.
I agree. I mean, it's
so
scary.
Do I trust the Democratic Party? No.
Okay.
Why
hear
did they
you.
do that?
No, I hear you. Hey, and listen, you. Call again. Call again. It's nice to hear a new voice. And
Thanks.
you
He
said
made my blood boil.
Well, that's good. I'm glad. Well, but you do very well supporting your case. So yeah, don't be.
Okay.
Do it again. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye. Bye. Wow. Hey, Celine saying, it's going like this. Hey, I got a minute here, okay? What nationality do you think has the most heralded Scrabble players in the world? And I mean, with the subject English. I mean, the words are English. What country? I'm just going to blow your mind. Nigeria. They boast more than 200 top Scrabble players. More than England, more than America, blah, blah, blah. And there's a story in the Wall Street Journal, I'm so glad to read it because I'm a crazy Scrabble player, is that the Nigerians play a whole different way. They play strategically. If you're into well, I'll stop because most people aren't. They don't get off on doing 7-letter words where you get a 50-point bonus. No. Because that empties your rack and you start over and you have no idea what you're going to get, and you can get nothing but vowels, which always seems to happen to me, or nothing but consonants, which also happens to me, and you can't make a damn word. So they figured out that 5-letter words are the way you win. Always holding. Even if you could make a 7 and get 85 points or something, they'll play a word that gives them 30 points, and they'll hold 2 letters that they know are going to help them. They'll hold an E, they'll hold a D for their next hand, and they end up winning. So I'm always playing Scrabble Words with Friends, so I am going to employ this strategy and see if I can win. By the way, the highest game I've ever had is 500 points. And it says right here that an American player in 2006 played a word that got 365 points. How the hell do you do? The word was Quixotry. He had the Q, he had the X, and he must have had it in conjunction with 365 point word. Went on to record-breaking final score of 830 points. What? Wow. That's amazing. So anyway, I just got to say, I'm changing my Scrabble strategy. Don't tell any of the people I play against. All right? And I'm putting that out there for any of you who might be into it, too. All right. Despite everything we've talked about, that the world is ending and the United States is going down and the Democratic Party is coming apart and government is totally dysfunctional and we are all totally fucked, have a great weekend. Okay? See you Monday.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.